Some of the cooler things to do with the insert mesh brush is to make a repeated pattern. In this case, you see a zipper, and if we look at this, we have the top part of the zipper, which is the zipper head, and then we have the teeth in the middle, and then we have the beginning clip where the zipper actually starts. So every time I drag this thing out, I'm going to get that same setup. No matter how long or short I create it, it's going to start with the head and end with that, beginning. Well, let's say the beginning and the end. Actually, the bottom would be the beginning and the zipper head would be the end. No, I'm sorry, the other way around. So basically, the beginning is the zipper head and the end is the bottom part of the zipper. Now, how is this achieved? If you look at the poly grouping, we can see that there are 3 different groups. It's a little hard to tell with this object because the groups are very similar in color. But what we have is a top group for the zipper head. The teeth are another separate group, and then the bottom is finally another group. And so this method is creating geometry on a stroke curve. So curve mode is on. If I turned off curve mode, we'd get something like this, which is just the section of the zipper dragged out. And as soon as you turn on stroke curve mode, you get something entirely different, which is that. Now, another thing with these curves is that if you grab the end of the curve, there's a little tail that appears. You can continue dragging it out. So if you don't get your selection in one shot, you can keep dragging this out over and over. Another cool function of this curve is that if I drag and I move away from the object and hold shift, it wraps things around your geometry perfectly. So right here, this zipper size is way too big. So what I'm going to do is turn it down a little bit, and then I'll try that again. Actually, let me clean up this file so we can see what's going on. So what we have here now is if we drag and we hold shift, we wrap around the object completely, and then when we release it, we'll have a perfect zipper around this sphere. And just like any of the other ones, you can manipulate this after the fact by clicking on the curve. It'll get a little messy, but if you take your time, you can really adjust this nicely. If for whatever reason you decided that you're manipulating it is covering an area that's too small, if we hover over it, you get this blue brush indicator. These 2 circles are in blue, and if we move away from the object, they become red. So while they're blue, if you enlarge your brush, you will be only affecting the brush size for the object to move, to manipulate. So here I'm manipulating a smaller set of curve points, and if I go over on the outside of the brush and where my brush indicator is red, then I'm actually updating the size of the geometry. So if I wanted it a lot larger, I would update it out here, or smaller, clicking on the curve. And if I want to manipulate the curve itself, I want to make sure that the circles are blue, and then I can actually drag on here. So it's a little tricky. You have to hover over it, but you get used to it. And if I like the way it looks, I can click off of it, and there I have my zipper, and I can free the mask and then separate it if I wanted to. So we lost some teeth there. So as you're manipulating, you just got to be careful that you don't pull and push this thing too much. So anyway, sometimes it's worth just drawing it over. So how do we create this 3-part curve brush? So I'll do this demonstration with chain. So what I'm going to do is, well, first of all, what I'll do is I'll create just the basic insert mesh brush, because we don't even know how to do that. So here I'm going to make Polymesh 3D, and I want to manipulate this piece here. So I'll just make it this oblong spherical shape here, right here. And then once that's selected, and once I have that shape that I like, I can go over to the brushes and down at the bottom you have something called Create Insert Mesh Brush, and then I would select New. And so that's it. I created an Insert Mesh Brush. You see it right here. Now let's say I wanted a couple of other versions of this. I can go and manipulate it further. Let's say I want to flatten one like that, and I go back to Create Insert Mesh Brush. I have the option now to make it a new one or append it. In this case I want to append it, and if you append it, then what we have now, oops, I have this little icon still selected. So let's go over to Create Insert Mesh Brush, Append, pressing M and the key. This is an old method where you would have to press M to see all your different pieces of geometry, but now you can just see them on the top row. So I'll hit OK, and see here we have the two objects here. So if I can click in between them at any point, and what happens now is you've created an Insert Mesh Brush, and this is how it looks. And if you want the flattened one, there we go. So we quickly create an Insert Mesh Brush, and we can always add the curve function. We can go to Stroke, Curve Mode, and then now you can drag this out in a row, which is really nice. And we can go to this first shape and do the same thing. Actually, I'll just leave that there and do the other shape so we can compare side by side these two objects. So just by choosing a different angle or flattening it, you get something entirely different. And there's a lot of other functions here. You can go to the stroke and you can change the curve step, and if I make that step even shorter, it changes the object completely. In this case it becomes more like almost like just a hose or something, because they're pressed up so close together. But you have to watch your poly count. I'm up at 3 million already. So you might want to create an Insert Mesh Brush with a lower resolution object to begin with, because you're duplicating this object over and over, and now you're multiplying millions of polygons in the stroke of a brush. So you have to be careful with that. But you know, ZBrush is pretty good at handling all this stuff, so you know, I would just be mindful of it. So turn off curve mode and you have one piece of geometry at a time. Alright, so now let's make this look a little more interesting. I'm going to go back to my, let me grab another piece of geometry, something like the ring. So here I have a ring, and I'm going to make a chain. So what I'll do is I'll open up Subtool, and I'm going to go and duplicate this. Let's duplicate it 4 times. So I have 4 pieces of this ring, and I'm going to move them over so they become links on a chain. So I'm going to go and rotate this guy here, and then I'm going to go and select the next one, and I'll move this one down there, and I'll go and select, I don't even know which is which, but I'll grab this one here and rotate that one as well. Now we want to make sure we know what's going on here, so I'm going to make the top and the bottom unique in the shape, so that we know that there is a top and bottom. So I'm going to change that one so it's longer, and this top link I will just drag it out that way. So now we have this beginning, the middle section, and the end point, right? So the only thing that's left to do at this point is combine everything. So what I'm going to do is go have my separate subtools, and I'll go to what you want to do is, okay, let's, one step was missed, and what I have to do first is actually turn these into a Polymesh 3D. So I'm going to end this video and I'll start a new one, so that this way we don't get too long.